Dear friend, Allah Apa, my name is Abbas Tamori. Time is 12:30. Actually it's 12 o'clock, but today's 30th of the December. Just about a couple of days left from this year. Last night I said I'm going to speak about this fourth representative of the Imam, and I told you that he's in the West. Before I get into the topic, I have a lot of stuff to cover. I try to be as fast as I can. Most of the time when we talk about the Baha'i faith or revelation of the Bab, always we bring quotations and references to the Islam, because they were read one after another. But there are a lot of references in the Baha'i faith that the revelation of the Bab and Baha'u'llah, especially Baha'u'llah himself in the Kitab al-Badi, says this revelation is exactly like that of the John the Baptist and Jesus Christ. In which case Bab will become John the Baptist and Baha'u'llah is the Jesus Christ. He says it's very similar to that. We have in the God Passes By, Shobi Effendi bring us similarities between Jesus Christ and the Bab. A lot of them, especially their age, especially they were both young and youth, 25. So, and I also said last night that Abdu'l says in some answered questions in the Baha'i faith there are twice as many as disciples or imam as in the religions of the past. Such as Christianity with 12 disciples of Christ or Islam with 12 imams. Here we're looking at the twin revelation of Bab and Baha'u'llah, and comes kind of 24. It means twice as big. It seems Baha'i faith is kind of a combination of the prophecies of Islam and Christianity. So it would have an appearance of all of those people as well in the Baha'i faith. So the main factor really that made me to think of the West is that the way we know it as it is in Islam recorded and somewhat in Christianity, as it says when Jesus appears, when he comes back in his return, there shall seem to be a anticipation of a world government, some justice that has not been there before. But in Islam, it is very clear, all the Muslims in Iran, one of the repudiations of the Bab is that the world is full of injustice. So they have this many traditions that when Imam Mahdi comes, or Qa'im, as they call him, the divine guide, he would create a new government. And I brought in the few topics before about the missions of the promised one of Islam, few quotations for you, I don't need to repeat it, but for example, one of the important one is that the sixth Imam, Imam Sadiq, the truthful Imam, says that he will teach you the justice, how to govern and create a just government. That is, at least, is expected out of him. That he would say that. So, and the Quran also brought you the verse that God says, I do reveal all the books, all the prophets, the reasonings, justice, but it's up to you to rise, to establish the justice. In the Baha'i faith, which is distinct from the other religions, and a matter of the fact that Baha'i faith has revealed a distinct order. We call it the world order of Baha'u'llah. In there we can see that very explicitly. Baha'i faith has revealed how to basically govern the affair of the Baha'is spiritually. It's very important. Not socially, not economically, not in the form of government. None of the Baha'i features an establishment that is there right now and will come in future, such as local spiritual assembly, national spiritual assembly, or the present universal laws of justice, is not meant to rule the world as the world government, or even a Baha'i government. Whereas in the writing of Shoghi Effendi, we do see the words such as Baha'i governments, yet nothing has been talked about it. I did in my previous video tell you that the world order of Baha'u'llah is only the affairs of the spiritual affair of the people, such as creation of the Ayatollah or Pope, which we're all using democracy and elect the Baha'is among ourselves at the local, national, international level. But there's nothing how to ordain the matter of economy and social justice. As Quran says, as in the Baha'i faith, this is up to us. However, according to the writing of Imam al-Sadiq, the Prophet, the Qa'im, will have to show us some kind of a pattern. How would that be? So, I brought this also very long time ago, I think the 5th, 6th videos about the evolution of the ideas, that it seems that from the Abraham son Isaac and Ishmael, the two religions of Christianity and Islam develops. These guys, they encounter each other at the Crusaders, where Christianity took all these books of the Muslims and they went to Europe and developed a new Europe that led to the Renaissance. Everyone knows that. And the Anglo-Saxon race in Europe, they took it very seriously, and based on that they went all around the world and they tried to find out what else is in there. And God gave the contract to them to build the United States of America, Canada, Australia. And so we can see the formation of the government of the United States of America, the biggest one of them all, of all these countries. It really was a part of the plan of God. That Christians, they will develop, bring economical and social justice, affairs of the body of the man, inhabit, the place, the planet. And Muslims, on the other hand, they will help the promised one, or the Jesus, into bring a new standard of the spirituality, in where man learns how to be spiritual with himself, with his fellow human being. So the spirit and the matter eventually comes together from the west to the east and creates a perfect order. In the writing of Islam, it says that the day of resurrection will not happen until the sun shines from the west. Well, the sun comes out from the east. Definitely this sun is not a reference to the ordinary sun. Such sun was the formation of the government of the United States of America. Now, the promised one had 4 people on the past and at his present time. 2 of them that came before him in Iran, they were the Sheikh Ahmed of Ahsa, and immediately continued with the Sayyid Kazim of Rasht. These 2 brought the basis of the spiritual platform that Bab revelation was based on, that because they developed a lot of students, that they all became, most of them, 90% of them, they became Babis and followers of the Bab. Without their effort, that would have not been possible. This is with the spiritual matter. However, to show finally how you practically bring this revelation of the Bab and the Baha'i faith together, practically establishing together, there had to be some pattern also set by the promised one, which is Jesus or Qa'im. They're the same. The prophets are to come at the same time, same year, same place. Those 2 in the West, believe it or not, is George Washington, the first president of the United States, immediately continued after, by who? By none other than Abraham Lincoln. So, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln are those two representatives of the Christ who came in Iran, but they were his representative in the West. So we have those four of the past that I mentioned, they returned, you see. Now, there are, to establish this is not very easy for you, because you say that, I'm babbling. Actually, it's not. George Washington was born, I think, in 1732. I wrote it down. And Bob came, of course, in 1844. But George Washington died at 1799. At 1732, when he was born, at around the same time as 1752, we can see Sheikh Ahmad Ansari, he's corresponding to that in the West, in the Iran, why Sheikh Ahmad was born. Just about around 20 years before that, already George Washington came also in life. I'm not going to bring the history of what he has done, what his life was and all that, but I like to bring you some of the stuff that is very, very amazing to me. First of all, it's recorded in our light. Even the cherry tree that was cut off, he said to his father that Paul couldn't lie. But they say, well, it might be some fabrication of the historians and this and that. But as you look, for the rest of his life, that could well be the case. You see, he was that kind of a character. Now, this man is not Christian as such. He even says in his word that I'll bring it to you, the United States is not found based on the Christianity. Yet he speaks about Bible and Christianity. He wasn't in a particular denomination of Christianity, here and there. You can see in history that he became a Freemason, actually. I've seen it in Alexandria, the Masonic temple where his statue was there. There are very peculiar things about him that was very amazing to me. First of all, is this extreme bravery. This man was so brave that in the French-Indian War, he says the bullets are zooming right beside my ear, and it's the whining of the bullet, it sounds good, he says. He has no fear, none whatsoever, at all. But then we have seen brave people in the past. We have to talk about something very unique about him. There's two things very, very unique. How many people in the world, let me tell you first before that I wrote down the date here. Let's see, he won against the British after signing the Declaration of Independence. It was, I think, in 1783. Yes, in 1783, the war was over. England said that we lost the war, and treaty was signed 3-4 years before that in Paris, create the peace, and now that is the day the war is over. What does he do? I wrote it somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, we'll see about that. I can't find it right now. This is what he does. In front of the Congress, at early Congress, he stands in front of them and he says that, good, the war is over and I'm resigning from being a general. I'm no longer General George Washington. I'm just George Washington. And I'm going to go back to my wife Martha in Mount Vernon, which I've been there. How many people would resign? That's the opportunity. Now you're everybody. But the greatest thing happens after that. Twice they came to him. Because they didn't know any better. They came to him unanimously. All that 13 states, I believe at that time, or 66 representatives they had, they all came unanimously. They told him that you are the king of America. We can't think of anybody else. And he refused. He said no, twice. Baha'u'llah has something to do about that. I tell you what will be related. Baha'u'llah says, in the promised day has come, page 71, he says, one of the signs of the maturity of the world is that no one will accept to bear the weight of the kingship. Kingship will remain with none willing to bear alone its weight. So the sign of the maturity of the world, Baha'u'llah says, is three. One of them is that when the kingdom is offered, the person does not accept it. Not alone. This shows what George Washington did at that day. He certified the maturity of the world at that day. That is the day you can say a new world was born. Just as in the East, a new religion was about to be revealed to change the spiritual realm of the planet. On the other side of the globe, there is a man who always talks about providence. And I will bring his words. That he says, without that, we could not do anything. He's so much into that. How many people would you know not to accept to become the king? The king of the United States of America. He did not accept it. That, you have to think about this. Don't look at past this casually. Try to imagine it is you. You know, what a glorious moment. All of them unanimously accept you are the king and you say no. This is the climax of selflessness. This man had no ego. We'll always look at the picture of George Washington. From childhood, I was always puzzled. Is this the ferocious man that the English people were so afraid of? This is the one who beat the Red Army? Look at his face. He looks like a priest. He looks like a pope. He looks like some kind of a philosopher. There's no sign of grandeurs and the ferociousness and the violence or whatever in him. He saw such a profound eyes and face he had, always. As if when you look at his face, all of his, and they portrayed it very well, that he's not where he was, his body was. He's always thinking about something too deep inside. Always. And why this idea of the republic so much he refers to? And how did he come up with this idea of creating, democracy as such, with no kingdom? Where did he get these ideas? That was to me very amazing. Like him, I said before, I only think of King Emperor Ashok in the North India and our own Persian King Cyrus, whose name is in the Bible, who emancipated the Jews from the Nebuchadnezzar. And he's a cylinder in his name, where he gives the first edict of freedom. Freedom of language, freedom of religion, freedom of work. It's in the cylinder by King Cyrus. We call him Kurosh. So, which I found lately, Abraham Lincoln had a book, a hidden book. They didn't know that was a book reference to the Kurosh too. So, the third one of them, the greatest transformer of all, really, is George Washington. God was interested in him. Not only because of his supreme honesty, he never lied, but such a selflessness. This man has been given such a great ticket and says no. He says kingdom is just what we fought for. We don't need that. Twice he said no. And finally, when they again unanimously elected him as a president, this time he accepted. I was in Mount Vernon. I advise you, take a time, go to see. It is so spiritual, that place. It's different, from what we see today of America. You can smell it, okay, from the land, from that house. That I was told by the guide there, close to 600 people every year they come to visit him. Well, a day is only 365 days. 600 visitors. That means in the morning and afternoon. And he and his wife would serve them. Imagine. It could have been all dignitaries. They could have been villagers, all kind of people. You got to dig down the history for yourself to see who he was. This is again some great quality of hospitality of this gentleman. Okay? He was not all that human as you think he was. He had an encounter with God, something that I totally accepted. It makes sense to me that God knows Jesus or Mehdi before they come. Baha'u'llah knows this is the United States of America is going to create a nation that will affect the entire world as it has in the past couple hundred years. Therefore, the first president there would be definitely the hand of providence involved. So, now, a man is, in my opinion, always is known by his words, you see. But a person, you want to know him as a leader, see what he says. Many of his words that I've collected here on the internet, I'm going to have to read it. I can't miss this. This is for sure not all of it. It's a few pages. Let's get at it. I can trace most of this in the writing of Baha'u'llah. He says it's better to be alone than in a bad company. Baha'u'llah says treasure the avoidance of the boastful and bad people. That's what Baha'u'llah says. He says it is impossible to rightly govern a nation without God and the Bible. See, God is again there. If freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. This is again Shoghi Effendi in the Baha'i administration about the freedom of the expression. Again, the primary object should be the education of our youth in the science of government. In a republic, what species of knowledge can be equally important, and what duty more pressing than communicating it to those who are to be the future guardians of the liberties of the country? Science. It's manifesto number 5 in the Baha'i faith. Let's get at it. Again, he says, true friendship is a plant of a slow growth. How true it is. And must undergo and withstand the shocks of adversities before it is entitled to appellations. How true it is. How remarkable was his mind to understand these things. So, there you're seeing a George Washington, he's deep philosopher. Great thinker. See, he was a combo of many things. And it goes back here. In politics, as in religion, my tenets are few and simple. The leading one of which, and indeed that which embraces most others, is to be honest and just ourselves, and to exact it from others, meddling as little as possible in their affairs, where our own are not involved. With this maxim was generally adopted, wars would cease, and our swords would soon be converted into rip hooks, and our harvest be more peaceful, abundant, and happy. See? I hope I shall possess firmness and virtue enough to maintain what I consider the most enviable of all titles, the characters of an honest man. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful word of God coming through his mouth. Human happiness and moral duty are inseparably connected. Again, if I want to discuss these things, it's huge. This moral duty without which we can't be happiness, because immediately our happiness is connected to the happiness of the others. If we cause unhappiness in others, immediately they spill it over us. And if you want to guard over yourself that you don't make people unhappy, then you have to have moral duty. And that's exactly, again, correct. There's nothing which can be better deserve our patronage than the promotion of science and literature. Baha'i faith again. Knowledge is in every country. Knowledge is in every country the surest basis of public happiness. He died himself of a simple disease. I don't know what they call it, Kuwaito or something. But he's 67 years old. He goes into rain and he keeps working hard. Should have come in, I don't know, why did he do that? As if he was accepting it. And after a few days he gets sick. Painfully he died of some simple bacterial infection that if there was a good doctor, they could have done it. But they gave him bloodletting, let his blood, because they thought the disease in his blood, and that made him weaker and died. So let's read more. The government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. He knew of something bigger. Definitely. These words that he says, although you can say all of it could be taken in a way, reconstruction of Bible, but yet it's bigger. This is the fruit of it. Happiness depends more upon the internal frame of a person's own mind than on the externals in the world. Absolutely correct. Associate yourself with men of good quality. That's exactly what Baha'u'llah says. If you esteem your own reputation, for it's better to be alone than in a bad company. I read this once. The turning point of lives are not the great moments. The real crises are often concealed in occurrences of so trivial an appearance that they pass unobserved. But I'm going to be observing today one of the things that he spoke of. He never talked about it when he was alive, but he did say to somebody a vision that he had. Again, he says, quote, it will be found an unjust and unwise jealousy to deprive a man of his natural liberty upon the supposition he may abuse it. This is the very big coordinate to the democracy. Whereas right now we have so many rules and laws, even in the United States. And they are not following this, isn't it? Now, in here, he's kind of boasting himself towards God, similar to those things that I told you, the first representative of Mahdi, he said, I am God. But in a true sense, you see. He says, no man has a more perfect reliance on the all-wise and the powerful dispensation of the Supreme Being than I have, nor thinks his aid more necessary. The man must be bad indeed who can look upon the events of the American Revolution without feeling the warmest gratitude towards the great author of the universe, whose divine interposition was so frequently manifested in our behalf. In war he directed the sword, and in peace he has ruled in our councils. Fantastic. This is what he was. He felt God all around him. They say the Indian war, he just goes right into the barrage of the shooting. Bullet was coming all over the place. Didn't hit him. Amazing. I think he went to Barbados where he got chicken pox or a smallpox. He would have been for sure dead. He didn't die. It scarred his face though. He didn't die. I hope ever to see America among the foremost nations of justice and liberality. That is again, Baha'u'llah says, the banner of the peace will be raised by North Americans. See? To preserve in one's duty and to be silent is the best answer to calumny. That is again the word of Baha'u'llah. Abdu'l says the best punishment to a person doing bad to is that don't pay attention. And Baha'u'llah says in one of the tablets, it's complementary to Kitab al-Aqdas, that just observe silence sometimes. And don't say nothing. Just look to see what future will bring. Reason and experience quotations. Reason and experience both forbid us to expect that the national morality can prevail in exclusion of the religious principle. You see, again the word of Baha'u'llah. We cannot live without religion, he says, the true religion of God. We tried it in the West. Communism tried to kill it in the East. They become more spiritual under communism, more attached to the religion, could not do anything to it. In the West, they try to set themselves aloof from the religion. Somehow they killed it. As a result, children are born in families with no love, really. Not the way George Washington's house was, because those principles are gone, brother. I'm going to have to read. If to please the people we offer what we ourselves disapprove, how can we afterwards defend our work? Question. If to please the people we offer what we ourselves wouldn't approve, how can we afterwards defend our work? Isn't that what all the politicians in the United States nowadays do? They just listen what people say and they want to follow something that they don't approve it. But if say public vote me for that, I'm going to say it. He says you can't do that. This is beautiful. If to please the people we offer what we ourselves disapprove, how can we afterwards defend our work? Let us rise a standard to which the wise and honest can repair. The rest is in the hand of God. And that would be Baha'i faith. There's nothing else, if you want to listen to him. Then he criticizes the militarism. He says, overgrown military establishments. United States today. Baha'u'llah exactly says that too. When Abdu'l visited the United States, he said, all these weapons here in Europe, it is deemed to have a war. George Washington, quotations, the elder of God. Overgrown military establishment which under any form of government are inauspicious to liberty and which are to be regarded as particularly hostile to the Republican liberty. Isn't that what we're missing? Isn't that what we're doing right now? We have to listen. The man who was in connection to God. This word tells you what George Washington was, you see. Because it's not a regurgitation of the word of the past. These are his own. Anything will give up its secret if you love it enough. Not only have I found that when I talk to the little flower or to the little peanut, they will give up their secrets. But I have found that when I silently commune with people, they give up theirs. See how we are and how he wants us to be. Real men despise battle, but will never run off from it. This is the general. He did not like war. That is why he resigned as soon as the war was over. How many times Jefferson was pushing him to let's expand to Canada and other places. He says no. West, he said no. He did not see himself to be different and separated from English people. It was just they were overtaxing them. He was opposing. We're being taxed without representative, he says. And that was the beginning of these issues. It started right from there. Quotations. The nation which indulges towards another an habitual hatred, that's what Americans are doing right towards the Muslim countries right now. George Washington disagrees. The nation which indulges towards another an habitual hatred or an habitual fondness is in some degree a slave. It is a slave to its animosity or to its affection, either of which is sufficient to lead it astray from its duty and its interest. This is Baha'u'llah's order, right in the Seven Valleys. He says this love and hate causes us to become prejudiced. Do not, either way, when you're investigating the truth. Now, if America wants blindly say that, oh, Muslim countries, Chinese, and then, on the other hand, any country, Canada, Australia, or anybody they like, Saudi Arabia, for example. This fondness with no reasons and the hatred with no reason, it causes the problem. Let's read it one more time. The nation which indulges towards another an habitual hatred or an habitual fondness is in some degree a slave. It is a slave to its own animosity or to its own affection, either of which is sufficient to lead it astray from its duty and its interest. Let your heart feel for the affections and distress of everyone. These are the spiritual word of God, authored by his mouth, okay? No people can be bound to acknowledge the invisible hand which conducts the affair of man more than the people of the United States. Every step by which they have advanced to the character of an independent nation seems to have been distinguished by some token of the providential agencies. And he has a strange vision that we will see what is he talking about. That vision, these things coming from. Arbitrary power is most easily established on the ruins of the liberty abused to licentious, means abrupt affections. A few pages. Individuals entering into society must give up a share of liberty to preserve the rest. I don't even want to talk about this right now. It's too big to me what he says. See, we think that we can't have dictatorship. Baha'u'llah says that dictatorship is a part of our life. In the Baha'i faith, the world order of Baha'u'llah has the good part of the dictatorship. But instead of a government dictatorship, instead of others dictating you, recommends Baha'u'llah self-dictation. You yourself dictate yourself not to do the bad things. You know it. Dictate on yourself. Get the animal down. Cut those so-called freedom that you think you have. Those are not freedom. You're going to steal others' freedom for doing what they hate, but you want to do what they don't like. This is what he says here. Individual entering into society must give up a share of the liberty to preserve the rest. Be not glad at the misfortune of another, though he may be your enemy. This is the word of God. Be not glad at the misfortune of another, though he may be your enemy. See the depth of the kindness we can see in these things. It is good to live alone than to live in a bad company. I wrote this once more time. Here, the blessed religion revealed in the Word of God will remain an eternal and powerful monument to prove that the best institution may be abused by human depravity. and that they may even in some instance be made subservient to the vilest of the purposes. It can be. Right now, Baha'i organizations are doing it to me. You know how much Pope in the Middle Age did to the scientists, and how much Muslim they did to themselves, to their own learners, and they do it today. Let your conversation be without malice or envy. Tell this to the member of the Congress. Much was to be done by the prudence, much by conciliations, much by firmness. A man ought not to value himself of his achievement or rare qualities of wit, much less of his riches, virtues, or kindred. This is right there the spiritual formula of the detachment from the ego. The foundation of our empire was not laid in the gloomy age of the ignorance and superstition, but at an epoch when the rights of the mankind were better understood and more clearly defined than at any former period. The researches of the human mind after the social happiness have been carried to a great extent. The treasures of knowledge required by the labor of the philosophy sages and legislatures through a long successions of years are laid open to our use, and their collected wisdom may be happily employed in the establishment of a form of government. He's talking the government of the United States really is the fruit of entire achievement of humanity, all of it at that point when it was getting established. Liberty, when it begins to take root, is a plant of rapid growth. Having now finished the work assigned me, I retired. This is what he said at that day. I was looking for this. On when he resigned in 1783. He says, having now finished the work assigned me, I retire from the great theater of actions and bidding an affectionate farewell to this august body under whose order I have so long acted. He calls it a theater, right? I here offer my commission and take my leave of all the employment of the public life. He was not bitter at anybody at that time. He just felt that. War for me, and being a general, is just a matter of occasion. I'm not a fighter, not a general. I'm just a farmer. I'm a man. Again he says, I had rather be my own farmer. I had rather be on my own farm than be the emperor of the world. What did this man see in his life that he came to this kind of a conclusions? Because he's not lying here. This is not a word of some kind of a philosopher sitting in his home watching movies and word comes to him just like a poet to talk. These are made and understood during a long war. Harmony, liberal intercourse with all the nations are recommended by policy, humanity, and interest. Exactly the word of Baha'u'llah. It says associated with all the people and all the creeds of all the nations. And finally, I take a particular pleasure in acknowledging that the interposing hand of heaven in the various instances of our extensive preparation for this operation has been most conspicuous and remarkable. That was his life. Three things was very important for him. He was dying in the bed. He called. He wrote down his will. He freed all his slaves. he's the president. He said, no, I will not have any snakes. That was a practice. Personally ended it. And that was the beginning of it. You know. To the credit of Jefferson, in the Declaration of the Independence, he did say in the Declaration of Independence that there should not be anything. But the Congress at that time did not accept it. Now, somewhere in Valley Forge, he had very few soldiers. The first time at Boston, he won against the British, but he was keep losing the war. The New York was taken away, and then he says that to the Congress that I have 10,000 maybe soldiers, barefoot some of them, malnourished, and I have to fight huge army. Only God can help us. He says at that time he was somewhere, and he had this strange dream. It looks just like those of the Apocalypse and the Revelation of John. To me, from Iran, this is absolutely true. I today certify it to be true. And this is right in the internet. Now, this is his very strange encounter that he has. He actually, in this, he saw a whole picture of what's coming, the war and everything else. I'm just going to say this because it takes few pages again. I'm going to read this. So, the vision and the prophecy of George Washington. Starting quote, I do not know whether it is owing to the anxiety of my mind or what, but this afternoon as I was sitting at this table engaged in preparing a dispatch, something seemed to disturb me. Looking up, I beheld standing opposite me a singularly beautiful female. So astonished was I, for I had given a strict order not to be disturbed, that it was some moment before I found language to inquire into the cause of her presence. A second, a third, and even a fourth time did I repeat my questions, but received no answer from my mysterious visitor, except a slight raising of her eyes. By this time I felt strange sentiments spreading through me. I would have risen, but the riveted gaze of the being before me rendered volition impossible. I essayed once more to address her, but my tongue had become useless, even thought itself had become paralyzed. A new influence, mysterious, potent, irresistible, took possession of me. All I could do was to gaze steadily, vacantly, at my unknown visitor. Gradually the surrounding atmosphere seemed as though becoming filled with sensations and luminous. Everything about me seemed rarefied. The mysterious visitor herself becoming more airy and yet more distinct to my sight than before. I now began to feel as one dying, or rather to experience the sensation which I have sometimes imagined accompanying dissolutions. I did not think, I did not reason, I did not move. All were alike impossible. I was only conscious of gazing fixedly, vacantly at my companion. Presently I heard a voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." While at the same time my visitor extended her arm eastwardly, I now beheld a heavy white vapor at some distance rising fold upon fold. this gradually dissipated, and I looked upon a strange scene. Before me lay, spread out in a vast plain, all the countries of the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, and America. I saw rolling and tossing between Europe and America the billows of the Atlantic, and the Asia and America lay the Pacific. Son of the Republic, said the same mysterious voice as before. Look and learn. At that moment I beheld a dark, shadowy being like an angel floating in the mid-air between Europe and America, dipping waters out of the ocean in the hollow of each hand. He sprinkled some upon America with his right hand, while with his left hand he cast some on Europe. Immediately a dark cloud raised from these countries and joined in the mid-air, in the mid-ocean. For a while it remained stationary and then moved slowly westward until it enveloped America in its murky fold. Sharp flashes of lightnings passed through it at intervals, and I heard the smothered groans and cries of the American people. A second time the angel dipped water from the ocean and sprinkled it out as before. The dark cloud was then drawn back to the ocean, in whose heaving billows it sank from the view. A third time I heard the mysterious voice saying, Son of the Republic, look and learn. I cast my eyes upon America and beheld villages and towns and the cities springing up one after another until the whole land from the Atlantic to Pacific was dotted with them. Again I heard the mysterious voice say, Son of the Republic, the end of the century cometh. Look and learn. At this, the dark, shadowy angel turned his face southward, and from Africa I saw an ill-omened spectre approached our land. It flitted slowly over every town and city. The inhabitants presently set themselves in battle, angry against each other. As I continued looking, I saw a bright angel on whose brows rested a crown of light, on which was traced the word Union, bearing the American flag, which he placed between the divided nation, and said, Remember, you are brethren. Instantly the inhabitant, casting from them their weapons, became friends once more and united around the national standard. And then again I heard the mysterious voice saying, Son of the Republic, look and learn. At this the dark shadowy angel placed the trumpet to his mouth and blew 3 distinct blasts. And taking water from the ocean, he sprinkled it upon the Europe, Asia, and Africa. Then my eyes beheld a fearful scene. From each of these countries arose thick black clouds that were joined into one, and throughout this mass there gleamed a dark red light, by which I saw hordes of armed men, whose moving with a cloud marched by land and sailed by the sea to America, which country was enveloped in the volume of the cloud, and I dimly saw these vast armies devastate the whole country and burn the villages, towns, and the cities that I beheld were springing up. As my ears listened to the thundering of the cannon, clashing of the sword, and the shouts of the cries of the millions in mortal combat, I heard again the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." When the voice had ceased, the dark shadowy angel placed the trumpet once more to his mouth and blew a long and fearful blast. Instantly a light as of 1,000 suns shone down from the above me, and pierced and broke into fragments the dark cloud which enveloped America. At the same moment the angel upon whose head still shone the word Union, and who bore our national flag in one hand and a sword in the other, descended from the heaven, attended by the legions of the White Spirit. These immediately joined the inhabitants of America, who I perceived were well nigh overcome, but who immediately taking courage again, closed up their broken rank and renewed the battle again amid the fearful noise of the conflict. I heard the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." As the voice ceased, the shadowy angel for the last time disappeared, dipped water from the ocean and sprinkled it on America. Instantly the dark cloud rolled back together with the armies it had brought, having the inhabitant of the land victorious. Then once more I beheld the villages, towns, and cities springing up when I had seen them before, while the bright angel, planting the azure standard he had brought in the midst of them, cried with a loud voice, "While the stars remain and the heavens send down dew upon the earth, so long shall the Union last." He placed it upon the standard, while the people, kneeling down, said, "Amen." The scene instantly began to fade and dissolve, and I at last saw nothing but the rising, curling vapor I first beheld. This also disappearing, I found myself once more gazing upon the mysterious visitor, who in the same voice I heard before said, "Son of the Republic, what you have seen, it thus interpreted. These great perils will come upon the Republic. The most fearful is the third, passing which the whole world united shall not prevail against her. Let every child of the Republic learn to live for his God, his land, and the Union." With these words the vision vanished, and I started from my seat and felt that I had seen a vision, wherein had been shown to me the birth, progress, destiny of the United States. As an American, have you ever heard of it? Mind-boggling, isn't it? I was in Mount Vernon. I discussed this vision of George Washington. None of the guides, they knew about it. As if America today have a filter over their eyes. They don't register the other dimensions of their spirituality. That the founder of this country had interwoven it with the entire fabric of the life. That's just missing. You think this is not a right vision? Think again. He is predicting, you see it, how the first battle that he was in, it had happened. Civil War happened. The war in Europe, Second World War happened. All of it. All that in the prophecies happens. And the angel with the Union. That is Baha'u'llah. If the Baha'i faith could be summed up in one word, that is unity. Adam came to give us about bad and good. Noah came to tell us there are metaphysics beside physics. Abraham told us there's one God. Moses told us there are laws from God. Jesus came and said there's love from God. Muhammad gave us the knowledge from God. And now today Baha'i faith says all of you are together. We have to all be united. The unity is number one teaching of the Baha'i faith. Baha'u'llah is for unity. And that, what he saw, that is the Baha'i faith. And the angel tells him the third one is the worst one. This exactly corresponds. I'm not going to read it tonight, but if you go into the Baha'i.org and look at the book called Call to the Nations, you see Shogi Effendi's prophecy exactly is covering the same thing, the third one, where it says a tempest, unprecedented in its course, is taking over the planet, it says. It's happening. And I had my own visions anyways about this, that what is going to happen. And as the angel told him, at the end, all this Anglo-Saxon race, they all will get united together. As they are, pretty much right now. But United States of America, government of the United States of America, is no longer a national government. It is becoming a provisional government of the world, costing American money to run it. Doesn't do much for America. The American governments are those 52 states governments. This state government of the United States, the national government, is actually an international government. I'm hoping one day, soon, that America and Canada and United Kingdom, Australia, Ireland, New Zealand, they all get together and they create the first universal government, the very first phase of it, in where there is only one army, there's one CIA, there's one police. There's no passport anymore. It's all one huge new phase, which is required. One would Anglo-Saxon rise to understand that they have to do this soon. It's getting late. The first phase, it will be done by them. And according to the angel here, it will happen so. Because it says nothing can stop it. They will all come back. So, this is the reason. I told you that. For the dual responsibility of the promised one, which Muslim they call it Qa'im, Christian they call it Jesus Christ. The one part was a spiritual. From Crusaders, it was by the Muslim that they came and they at the end revealed the Baha'i faith among them. And the other part of it was the British people who translated all these words and all these books, created a language with million vocabulary words, went all around the world to see what the planet looks like, produced the greatest scientists, greatest thinker, greatest philosophers of all, and finally was given the contract to build United States of America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, along with its base in Europe, all the 5 countries which represent the name of the Bab, the five elders. And those countries are setting a new planet, in where its main one, which is the United States of America, George Washington was the elder and was the representative of Jesus, or Qa'im, in his return in America to found this government. All those words are perfect evidence for it. I am 100% sure of it. And I will continue this discussion tomorrow to finish it off, hopefully tomorrow. I would have wanted to elaborate a lot more. Time is not there. But you know, I try to scratch the surface. It's up to you. You got to go dig in and find out the rest of it yourself. Allahu Akbar.